about that? There we go. There. Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nancy Smith, and it's my pleasure to join all of us today, Karen and Jill and Caprice. So today the goal is really just to have a conversation. I know that Caprice is a new mentor with Mastrius, and one of the benefits before you decide if you want to be mentored by somebody is, don't you want to get to know them a little bit? And that's our whole point of today. So I just want to say hello. Go ahead, Caprice. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Nancy. And you are going to be my navigator in my upcoming mentor group that starts on Monday, May 15th in 5 Mountain Time. Is that what it is?
It is.
Okay. Yes, today I think it would be great for us to just have a little chat about what all we will be talking about in our course. And for me, I've been doing this for 28 years, oil painting. I'm an oil painter. This is my studio. It's where I do my teaching. And I mainly do landscape painting, but also flowers, still lifes. I do a little of everything, but I generally do the oil painting. I can teach all mediums though, because I've done not all of them, but I've done acrylics and watercolors and everything. And I'm going to be teaching a lot of the theory. So for me, I love to talk composition, line, shape, value, color mixing, all those sorts of things. So I get into all of that sort of stuff. And I'm a firm believer that it's good to learn the rules to make it easier for people to be able to get what's in their head out onto their canvas or paper, and just try and get rid of some of the frustrations and make this fun and exciting and inspiring.
Well, I was really drawn to your beautiful work. I love, I like to paint landscapes, and when I first saw your work, I was astounded. So I actually pulled, with permission, some of Caprice's work. So I'm just going to share my screen so that in case you're not familiar with her work, you can see it firsthand. So just click that. It says it's loading, so maybe you can just give me a thumbs up when you can.
There it is. It's right there.
So what is this piece, and when did you do it?
This one is a waterfall. I love doing waterfalls. Have you noticed that? Yeah, they're one of my favorite things. And this one's a waterfall near Kootenay Lake, which is not far from me, maybe 3-hour drive. It's in the West Kootenays of British Columbia, and I'm in the East Kootenays. I'm close to the Alberta border in Canada. And this is one of my favorite places to paint in the whole world, is Kootenay Lake. And that's it's called On the Bright Side. This one's called On the Bright Side.
Love it.
Beautiful.
What about let's see. I just heard thunder, so here in Calgary it's thundering.
We finally have sunshine here in Kimberley.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Now this is a different piece. Where was this done?
This is Tuscany. Have you ever seen the movie Under the Tuscan Sun?
Yes.
And have you read the book? Because this is right down the street from Bramasole, where the movie was. Well, the author lives just down the street from this church, and this was in the movie, this one. So I had the great pleasure of spending 3 weeks in Tuscany a few years ago with my mom, and it was just a highlight of my life to see so much great art. And we landed there in time for the poppies to bloom, and so.
Oh, lovely.
Love those poppies. Beautiful.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're so rich.
I'm a big fan of going and seeing original art and being inspired by art. So how Italy was a dream for sure.
Amazing.
Back to the mountains.
Right, back to the mountains. This is just above Lake O'Hara at Yoho National Park in British Columbia, and many great painters have painted Lake O'Hara, and I have done it dozens of times. And I think a lot of the painters on Mastrius have been there, painted on location. I painted there on location in 1996 was the last time I was there. And you have to catch a bus to get in. There's no traffic.
There we go. I love the rocks, and this is what I want to learn how to paint, Caprice.
Great. I can teach you rocks. I can.
Beautiful.
And
They really are.
this is one I pull up a lot for how you get your greens to recede. And you want, you know, as things go aerial perspective, as you go off in the distance, things get lighter in value and they get cooler. So the greens in the foreground are a lot yellower than the greens as the greenery recedes, it gets a little lighter and a bit bluer. I had a little blue into that green.
So pretty.
And I just have to say how much I love your cedar trees too, Caprice. They're
Oh, they're
so
gorgeous.
special, and we have those where I am in Anacortes, Washington, and
Yeah, you
the
would.
shape of those branches is so unique. And whenever I try to capture it, I just feel like there's this little dip that kind of goes up at the end, and you've just done a really good job of capturing not only them visually, but like their character too. So
Yeah. Well, you see, and I get all excited about the negative shapes. So when I'm drawing them, I'm not often drawing the tree itself, but rather the negative shapes and the sky holes. That's what really excites me.
yeah,
I
see
think
that,
Nancy's going
especially
to
on the
show.
right-hand side. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got to be the right amount of sky hills, and they all have to be different shapes, different sizes. And yeah, Nancy will show you a couple paintings from my mentors, and you'll see where I learned how to paint trees.
We got another waterfall. Beautiful.
I got another. Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is a local scene near
Okay.
me called Moss Creek.
Yeah, you can see the moss on the rocks. I was going to comment on that. Like the
Yeah.
green it's so stunning. It's striking.
Yeah. And greens are a whole other thing that I get excited about teaching, because there's so many varieties of greens, and that's one thing students struggle with is mixing good greens and different greens. When you're working in landscape, especially, it can be a challenge. Not so much if you're doing abstract.
sure.
work. Yeah.
Mm.
And there's another poppy.
Oh, that's pretty.
I'm trying to remember if this one was from Tuscany or if this one might have been from my garden, actually. I think that one's from our garden. I came home and planted poppies, go figure.
Yeah, I wonder what was your inspiration.
Yeah.
Now here's one of your, you
Oh,
were
that's
telling me one of your mentors.
This was my mentor, Karen Hersey, did this one. So she's the one that first taught me about all those beautiful sky holes and those tree shapes.
okay.
Yeah. And she was a real colorist, she was.
Where did you study with her?
I studied with her when I was in Calgary, actually, and she had just moved to Calgary from the island that's in Alberta. Moved to Calgary, and she had some health issues, so she wasn't teaching or painting at the time, and she had been doing it for 30 years and took me under her wing as I had just quit university and wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. And when I met Karen, she gave me all this theory about painting, and I really was not interested. And she insisted on teaching me. And it was at that point when she handed me that paintbrush that I never turned back. It was what I wanted to do with my life. So it's thanks to her. She started it all back when I was young.
And
This was my other mentor, Keith, and Keith actually was Karen's mentor. So I went out to Vancouver Island and I worked with this fellow, and he was incredible. And I love to watch him paint. He wasn't so much good. He was a different type of mentor in that he was good at showing you what to do. His brush was magic, and watching him paint was extraordinary. And I have the benefit of having stacks of letters, handwritten letters from Keith. I would mail him photographs because I was in Alberta, he was in BC. And I would mail him photographs of my paintings, and he would write back and critique them and tell me where I went right and where I could need to put a tree or make some changes. And so I've got that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So I actually have
forever to get, like months, right? Like by the time you get this back and forth.
Oh, it was awesome. And now I've got this treasure box of these handwritten letters with his big, huge, scrawly, beautiful handwriting. And he had such a personality and such a sense of humor. And he was in his 70s, and he was at the height of his career. He was selling, he was, in galleries, and he was the most productive point of his entire career was in his 70s. So.
Well, we got lots to aspire to, don't we?
Yeah, we've got a lot of years left. Yeah.
Oh, and look, Lynette has joined us.
Oh, hi, Lynette. Welcome.
Oh, sorry. There's I have to move.
You have a
You're-
sunbeam.
Yeah,
You're
you
like-
look very ethereal.
She does.
There we go.
Oh.
That's better.
Hi, Lynette.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not we
Not
actually
at
were
all.
we were just showing some of Caprice's work. I think you might be familiar with it, so that's nothing.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Talented
The-
lady. Love
The
her
other thing
story.
why I was interested in having you as my mentor, Caprice, is I had come across you on Instagram, and you do these amazing Monday minutes, but they're not a minute. You take the time to kind of frame them with like what you're thinking or what you want to share. And I was really astounded. Like, I look forward to your Mondays, and I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit, like, share with everyone else about what you want to accomplish with those, and yeah, maybe some of your wisdom.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Nancy. Every Monday, I do a 10-minute Monday art tips, and it changes every week. Sometimes it's very talking about the life of an artist or inspiration or how to get out of a dry spell. And other days it's very much theory based and how to mix colors or composition. So every week it changes. Sometimes I'll do an art demo. Sometimes on one of my previous ones, I actually had a chat with Lynette, which was really nice. That was a fun Monday. And just talking art, whatever happens to come to mind in that any given week. I decide on Sunday, and then I show up on Monday and I just start talking because I love to talk about art.
I liked how you were talking this week about because I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons why people join Mastrius, and if this is something that if somebody's watching and you haven't joined, I think most of us on the call right now are a part of it. And what's really, really amazing is not only do you learn, but you also have a community of others who are in that same place as you, who, want to, like, we're passionate about it, but we also benefit from conversations with one another. But I loved what you said this week about learning the rules, why we should learn the rules. Would you mind telling us that part?
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. That's a good topic because I'm a big stickler on learning the rules, or I refer to them as fundamentals because I don't really want to talk about rules. I think art should be fun. I think it should be creative. I think you should let yourself go crazy. I don't think you should let rules hold you back at all. But the reason I want to talk about rules or the fundamentals is because I think it can help get students to get what's in their mind out onto the canvas. And I think it helps people to have an understanding that if, you don't put all your trees smack dab in the middle of your canvas, it'll be a better composition. And that's what the masters did. I refer to art history a lot because I love to see original art, and I read about art a lot. I've got a lot of art books, and I think that can get any artist out of a lot of trouble if they run into a sticky spot on their canvas. They can just go to what the past has taught us. And these rules just kind of helped students to get their art to a certain place where they won't be disappointed, and they can get what's in their head out onto a canvas or onto paper. And then once you know these rules and you have an understanding of them, you can toss them away and choose. Then you're choosing when to not follow the rules once you've got the knowledge in your head. And that's what I want to share with some students.
And I definitely would benefit from that. I also know, I don't think it matters where you are at your painting journey, whether you have 20 years experience or 6 months experience. You may have heard it and you may have read it, but to have a good discussion or even a practical application like I know we'll be doing is so valuable.
Exactly. And everybody's at different stages. And I've taught people that have never picked up a paintbrush before. And I've had students that have been with me for years. And a lot of my students that keep coming back are here, as you said, for that community. Here in my studio, the students I teach, they keep coming back week after week because they just want to be together. And I think that's one of the brilliant parts of Mastrius is that they are going to bring people together, and then they can keep learning together and have a sense of community and connection with one another. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't too sure when I started Mastrius. I've only been with it for, I guess, 6 months. I've always gone to a studio, and I kind of thought, like, how is that going to translate from physical, like, you can see it, you're next to people, and I kind of was thinking that was the only way, but I will say that I am a convert to online because then we get access to people like you who we're not neighbors. It would be a big trek for me. I'd love to go to Kimberley, but I can't go every Tuesday. And I just think it's amazing. And then we get to connect, like Jill, you're from Washington State.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, we have some other people on the call today. I'm not sure where you're dialing in from, but that's the other neat thing is you curate this really cool, interesting, dynamic group of people from gosh only knows where. Like we have some people from Australia, everywhere.
The other thing that I really love is that you can learn from one another as well, because
Yeah.
when I'm talking to one student perhaps about composition or something, then the other students can hear me say that, and everybody can benefit from somebody else's painting, and what I have to say to that person is applicable to everyone.
Very true.
So I love
Very
that. I
true.
love that. Yeah.
And so if we were to give a little sample of, like, we've talked a little bit about what your kind of foundation is, but what would you be discussing in our upcoming classes or our upcoming mentorship together?
Well, I would really like to find out where my students are at with their art. And I'm open to all kinds of mediums. I'm an oil painter true and true, and I'm a big believer in oil painting because I think it's the most forgiving. And for me, I'm very passionate about it, but I've worked in acrylics, I've worked in watercolors, and the theory is the same for slightly tweaked a little bit for each medium, but I love, I can talk composition. It doesn't matter what your medium is, I can teach it. And I lost my train of thought there, but yeah, I can teach watercolor just as easily as I can teach an oil painter. But I want everyone to not have fear when they're painting. I don't want them to have the preconceived ideas that oils are really stinky and smelly and hard to and not forgiving, or watercolors are too difficult. I don't want people to have fear. I want them to come and have a good time and be creative and spontaneous and inspired. I don't want them to be held back by things that could possibly get in the way of them. This art's supposed to be a release and something that you're passionate about. I don't want it to have to be tied down by preconceived ideas.
Like expectations, because Caprice, I think one of the things that I was happy to learn is that you don't necessarily have your work all over galleries and all that. You've kind of taken a different path with that too, haven't you? And where you opened your own gallery or studio, or tell us about that a little bit.
Thanks. Yeah, I did. I did the gallery route. I took my time learning in the early days, and I was very young and very spontaneous and really thought I was something with my art because people told me I was very good at art. So I went with it full on and started approaching galleries, and some of them rejected me and some of them took me on. And I found that the gallery route, the standard status quo route of being an artist, was not for me. So a few years into my career, my mom and I packed up and moved together to the mountains. We'd always wanted to live in the mountains. And we wound up in Kimberley, British Columbia, living in the midst of the mountains. And we renovated our house, and I opened the entire front of the house up into a studio gallery, opened it to the public. I'm right downtown, and I just started selling right out of my studio. And that was before online sales were a big thing. I had a website, but I just opened my doors and was open 7 days a week, all day, every day from May until October, basically. And did the art markets, did all that sort of thing. And I did some exhibitions, solo exhibitions. So there's like a different path for everyone. And I think you just got to find your own way and don't try and do it the way everybody else is. And it's not about the number of galleries you have or the number of art sales you have. It is about creating art. At the end of the day, it's always about art and creating good art and art that speaks to you and art that speaks to other people. And I think that is success, is when you create something that you're happy with at the end of the day.
I really appreciate that focus on process and just really, really creating from yourself instead of creating for expectations. I think that that's something that we always have to remind ourselves of too. It's like, it's so easy to be like, oh, you know what? A couple of my little paintings sold out of there. So I should probably just start doing only those or something. And it's just, we have to keep bringing that back of like, wait a minute, like, let's check in and what is my process? So I appreciate that about you, that seems to be kind of first and foremost, what's in the front of your head. So
It definitely is. And, you know, I just found the other night a documentary on Ed Sheeran, and that's kind of what he said as well. He was out when he was first starting, before he was anybody, and he would just sing songs. It was all about the songs. So I'm very much the type of person who continuously learning. I'm always learning. And I think that somebody like Ed Sheeran can teach us something about learning to just, he played every single gig he could, as long as he was out singing, it didn't matter. It was all about the songs, and he would sing in, you know, rap songs, and he would sing classical songs. He would sing whatever he could just to get out there and to get his music out there and doing what he loves. That's what it's all about, is singing. For him, for me, it's painting.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's a good one.
It is really good. I watched it too. Yeah. No, that's great. That's a great comparison. And I do think like that's why I mean, I speak for myself. I kind of told you before, I don't have any aspiration to sell anything. I just want to create work that I feel good about. And maybe like I said, you know, if I went to a friend's place for dinner, maybe if I brought them a little painting instead of a bottle of wine, that would be a great goal, and that they'd like love it and treasure it. Like that's my goal. Others, I'm sure in this group, are like, no, I want to sell and make a livelihood from this. And that you have all those experiences. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I really like how you bring in so much outer sources of information or resources, just like now when you talked about the singing. I don't know where you pull some of this stuff from at times. You're just, the knowledge that's in your head or that you read is very inspiring. And I like that about you, that you bring so much else into it. And what do you find that when you're teaching artists, do they have anything that they generally are just craving or really want to learn, or are people all over the place? Do you find any general themes that when people come to you for mentoring?
Well, you know, I asked my students, I was out painting on my deck this afternoon with my students, and I asked them that very question, actually.
Oh. This was not set up. I did not know this.
And so I asked them, I said, why do you keep coming to me? What do you want to learn from me? And why do you keep coming? And they're like, we're here, yeah, to learn art. You have good theory, you've got the knowledge, but we also have a really good time. We have a good, I keep saying I should put on the prerequisite that my students have to have a good sense of humor, because we laugh a lot. And yeah. And so this should be a fun time. It should be a good time. And yet I'm really strict with my rules of fine art, and I don't let anybody get away with anything. So they haven't quite figured out how I could be so strict and still have them laughing at the same time. So I like to have a good time. And I'm a story girl. I said this to Nancy yesterday as we were talking about our little prep today. And I said, I'm a story girl. So I tell stories from my own personal experience. And I'm always telling stories as to how I got where I am and how I learned to paint and the really dumb things I've done and the smart things I've done. And so, yeah, that's how I roll. So I'm hoping that you can walk away having had a good time and learned a lot, and yeah, laughed. Hopefully we've laughed a lot.
So important.
So important. Does anyone else have any questions you want to ask Caprice?
Where are these other ladies from? Can I ask Diane and Karen where you're from?
Yeah.
Well, I'm from Carstairs, Alberta, which is just south of Calgary, or north of Calgary. Oh my gosh.
I thought you were by Calgary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
It's just a small bedroom community, one light. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
where do you live?
I'm in Calgary.
Oh, you are. How about you, Diane? Oh, you're just on mute.
You're muted. There we go.
I'm here in Calgary. It's Karen, but I have it on safe mode here because I have other things happening.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank
We're
you
so
for
glad you could
joining
join
in.
us. Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Okay, lay it on me.
When you're in there and you're in your class and it's just starting, and how are you telling the students how to approach their paintings, or even for yourself, how you approach it? Is it from what you've seen? Is it from, do you have reference photos? Do they have reference photos? Is it from their heart? How do you approach that for starting a painting in that blank canvas?
You know, in the beginning, I like to use reference photos. I sometimes, like the tree painting right there, was totally out of my head. I just sat down and started painting a tree. The sky came out red and yellow, and it was after I've been through something in my life, and it came out that way. So, but I don't recommend starting off at the get-go that way. As I'm teaching the theory about, you know, aerial perspective, composition, line, shape. And by the way, all those 5 rules, it doesn't just apply to a landscape painter or a still life. It's the same thing, Lynette. You probably have to take note, even with your abstract paintings, you still have to have good shapes and good color and good variation of values and warm colors and cool color. All those things have to be in an abstract just as much as a landscape. So just in order to get the theory, I like to start with possibly a reference photo. And if you're an abstract painter, well, we'll work with that too. But I think I'm trying to remember the quote. Here we go. Jackson Pollock, maybe it was. Oh, no, it's Picasso about painting is easy. You just have to put the right color in the right place.
And then
So-
the next question would be for the students to be asking you, for the artist to be asking you, but where's the right place and how do I know where the right place is?
Yeah. So this is what we're going to learn. Eat the cake. It's easy. No, my students always complain that painting is harder than they thought that it would ever be, but sometimes it is easier to start with a reference photo so that I can just explain that, you know, the trees far off in the distance are a bit bluer than the trees in the foreground. And with the landscape, you need things to recede and some things to come and go. But it's the same with an abstract. You can't have all of the bright colors smack dab in your face at the same time. You have to have some that are going to lay back a little bit and some that will come towards you. So,
Right. What do you find your students also learn? As painting aside, what else do you feel that they go away with? I know we talked about the community, but are they feeling, especially if they come in and, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I have no clue how to paint.
Well, you know what? The community is definitely important. And when we went through COVID, that became even more important through the pandemic when we were all able to come together and talk art for 2 hours. It was an amazing thing. It's like an escapism. You can set aside your life for those 2 hours and just do art and create something and take space for yourself. I think it's healing to do that. I think the connection between one another is important. And I also think that it's just really good to do something like that for yourself. And it's so it makes your priorities stand out in a different way, at least for me.
Oh, really? Like what? Like how does that? I can see the healing definitely, or just.
Well, for me, because I did choose this different lifestyle, not everybody's going to want to become a professional. Some students will. They want to do this for a career, and that's where this whole point about going to galleries, approaching galleries, that's great. But if you want to do this as a career, you've got to set up certain, you know, I didn't live the high life. I didn't go to Europe every day. Every year, or I did do a trip to Tuscany, and I did go travel and see some art, but it's very hit and miss, you know, whereas I want to be in my studio painting, and that kind of becomes my priority. And so I live simply. I don't spend a ton of money. I don't, you know, have big ideals and aspirations of going all over the world and things. I want to be painting and I want to be teaching because I love to teach and I love to talk about art. So that's just my way. And for the people that just want to come and just paint every every week or once a month, I do the Mastrius. I want to just get that passion of art. That's what I want everybody to see, that art is an amazing thing. It doesn't matter what type of art you do, it's all extraordinary and can touch people and heal people. Looking at art, I've been seeing art that creates tears. I went to see a local choir the other night, and the conductor went and everybody in the audience started crying when she started singing. Like, that's what art is about, I think.
Yeah, very emotional. Even,
I don't know why
even with landscapes, it can be emotional as yeah.
And this is a whole other thing where Lynette, maybe you can answer this too. I'm not supposed to be the one asking other people questions, but sometimes people have an emotional reaction to the place that I happen to be painting. And do you get emotional reactions to your paintings too, even though it's not a specific place?
Yeah, I don't think so much with the abstract. Sometimes when I do the abstract landscape and it relates to a place, then that has that connection. It also depends upon maybe the story that I have behind it. Very similar to what you say, because you have stories behind your paintings, and that's what I love about it. That I might have created a series that when I was somewhere or was going through something, and that comes out of it and people can relate to it. So I think that might happen, but not so much of where, just because of the abstract aspect. Let's say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, totally. And one of the reasons I asked you that is because I went through your Instagram paintings, your photos on Instagram, and then I wound up falling in love with one of your paintings, and you said, "Oh, I did that one a long time ago." And who knows why a person connects to certain pieces, but that's how it happens. You never know when it's gonna.
Yes. Okay, that's a good question for you. Can you remember when you painted a lot of your paintings, where and when and how you felt?
Oh, don't open that can of worms. I'm the story girl, I'm telling you. I've got so many art stories and painting stories, and yeah. And I one of the reasons why I did do my studio gallery instead of going the professional gallery route is because I love to know the people that buy my work. And I've become very, very dear friends with a lot of my collectors and the people that have purchased my paintings through the years. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of stories because I know almost everyone that's bought my work. So for me, that's been very exciting. And yeah, I got a lot of stories.
See, that just tells what kind of person you are as well. That's wonderful.
I agree.
Thank you.
Something came up for me when you were talking about when you asked your students, why do you keep coming back and all that? And I think one of the things that I love about creating with other people, because I always have loved creating with other people back in college and just kind of throughout when I've taken in-person courses and workshops and whatever. And now having Mastrius and the online format is amazing. But no matter what format it is, I feel like as artists, we all speak a very common language, and a lot of us perceive the world in certain ways that even if it's not the same perception, we can relate and we can understand as artists. And just to have that community of people and support to where, I mean, if I just said to you all right now, like, oh, my studio's a mess and I'm having trouble getting focused and getting going.
Yeah.
Every one of you could relate to that. Whereas if I told that to the random people in my life that aren't artists, it would just kind of be like, okay, well, that sounds great. But everybody has a story about that as far as being an artist, if that makes sense. And so I think that connection, without getting too rambly too late, I think that connection is really valuable for us as artists.
I agree, Jill. It's huge. And I also wanted to say the other thing about having this connection is that life happens. And some of my students have been at my studio gallery, and my one student's husband was about to leave to go have a lung transplant. And then another student's dad just died. And then another student, had breast cancer and all these things. And we all kind of did all of that together. and we painted, and through the painting, then we'd all start crying, and then we'd get over that, we'd go back to painting, and we'd start laughing. And it's like life does happen. We don't live in this bubble where we can just become, these painters, and life is always happy and fun, but we can support one another. And I think
Yeah.
that is the joy, Jill, of like painting together and coming together in a place like this, is that it's a safe place for people to be able to come. And I know I've been through my traumas in the last 6 years, and my students have been the ones that have held me up and buoyed me up and got me through it all, so that I can now do really be back doing what I love. So.
Oh, great.
That's great. That's what I love about Mastrius too, is the classes are small, and so that you can build that bond together and feel safe and do that healing process that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very important. Nice to see your face, Karen.
I finally got to somewhere where I can do this. You saw a whole bunch of mess in my house.
No worries.
That's another thing about Mastrius. We all no apologies necessary. Are you a part of a mentorship right now, Karen?
I am, and one of the things we were talking about, I just started painting, not that long ago, and I am in a very different stage in my journey than other people in my group, and it is a safe space, but I feel, that I was watching your thing on the imposter syndrome, because I definitely have that, and I feel, I know I'm just on a different stage of the journey. So it's nice to be able to be in a group. I'm in an emerging, but in a group where it doesn't matter what stage I'm at, people are really supportive and helpful, and it's a safe place.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. And I think we've all been at different stages. It doesn't matter. We may be at a different stage in art, but then we could be great expert in another aspect of our lives, and then total beginner in another aspect of our lives. So it's just everybody comes together with art, and we just work together and help one another. It's great.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said, that art is healing. It's a healing journey, and when you're in there and you can get lost in it and enjoy it and find the joy, because I was selling and then decided I had to paint to sell. I lost it.
Yep.
Yeah, that extra pressure, and all of a sudden you get tight, and the joy is gone, and you have to rework that mind. Yeah.
Trying to make something people like instead of what you want to do.
Exactly.
To make it
That's
fun.
a whole other thing. That's why I say the whole artistic life, the creative life, it's a different lifestyle altogether, in order to be able to do what you love and paint what you love and create the way you want, and then to be able to still pay your mortgage. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So there are ways to do it, though. There are. Definitely.
How about you, Diane? Did you have any questions? I don't want to put you on the spot, but we had you on mute, and then, or anyone else for that matter.
Diane's trying to get off mute.
There she is.
I was coughing. I didn't want to interrupt, but I muted myself. So no, I'm from Florida, and I just figured I'd check it out. I just am in another group, and I need to get back to the basics with some of the things. I'm getting inspired on just, I've been painting for a long time, but I sort of gotten away from just the rules of it. And I know, you can break them, but
Yeah.
so.
Good to know what they are first.
Yeah,
Always
exactly.
good to revisit. Always good to revisit.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What do you like to paint, Diane?
Landscapes, animals, anything really.
Caprice has a class.
Portraits, figures. Huh?
Caprice has a class.
Yeah, that's what I thought I would check out.
Good.
Now's your time to ask her questions to see if she can she can help you with the fundamentals.
Is there one thing in particular that's tripping you up?
Well, I would say, I don't want to say everything, but values and focal point, sometimes I want to do too much of a scene, too complex of a scene.
Right. So, all right, let's start with values. One of my favorite tricks that I wish I had when I was learning values and how to paint with values is it's a little red plastic piece of paper. I think you can get it at the art supply stores or stationery stores. Sometimes they're used to go over like reports for university reports. It's clear red plastic. You look through that at your painting or your reference photo, and it gets rid of all the color and it makes it more like a black and white photograph. And then it will tell you whether or not your colors are of a good value. It kind of gets rid of the color and makes it like a black and white photo, and helps you to know whether your darks are dark enough and your mediums and lights are, standing side by side accurately.
That must be nice to have that so that you don't have to always be taking a picture and turning it to you can actually see it in real time or real time. Whatever.
Yeah, right in front of your eyes. And that red plastic, I don't know why it works so well. The other colors, I've tried different colors. It doesn't do the trick as the red. And it just is like, I think it costs 8 cents or something. So
no excuse.
I saw it on Amazon for a lot more than 8 cents, but I was wondering if it was worth it. So that's interesting.
There you go. Yeah, it is so worth it. That's one of my favorite things ever is that red plastic. I've got my students pulling that out all the time. So where's your red plastic? Yeah. So that's that's one way to help solve some of your value dilemmas. Composition. Yeah, it's good to start out. Yeah, you get to choose where you want to have your focal point. Whether you want the tree to be a focal point, your mountain to be a focal point, you just got to make a decision and then stick to it. That's the hard part, not changing halfway through your painting. So
Is
yeah.
it the same with complexity? To get too complex, it's just learn how to walk away. Or
yeah.
How do you find it, Diane, in that when you're saying it's too much on there? What do you mean by that?
Well, plein air painting outside, I'm sort of attracted to the whole scene rather than just a vignette of the scene. And I've seen plenty of paintings of other people, by other people who do the whole scene, and it's a beautiful painting. So I don't necessarily think that they may have a focal point in there, but it's just harder for me to pick it out sometimes because it just looks like a large scene, a restaurant outside, a cafe, whatever. And then when I attempt to do the whole scene, the critiques are about narrowing it down to smaller areas. So it's confusing, but.
I have the same sort of question about simplifying, really.
Okay, good. Because even when I do like a huge 40 by 50 inch canvas of the mountain, like Nancy earlier showed my Lake O'Hara from the Yoho National Park, and it had rocks in the foreground, a waterfall, the trees, the grassy slope, the mountain in the background and everything. I laid it out. It was a full-on scene with everything in there, but I laid it out so that the waterfall led your eye into it, and the amount of trees, the glacier on the lake, it's always kind of planned out a bit. There we go. So that it really leads your eye in there, so that the composition was planned. If, for example, some of that rock would have cut the waterfall halfway, that would have stopped the eye from leading into the scene. So the thing is, when you are the painter, you get to control the viewer's eye, and you show them where to look if it's done accurately. And I'm not saying that all paintings that you're looking at are done with a focal point, but there's definitely ways to get the viewer to stop and look and ponder and really take it in. And there are ways to do that. And you don't want to necessarily have everything busy. You want to give your eye a place to rest at certain spots, but you really want to, you know, the tree, for example, on the right side is very interesting. But I think when you first stop and take a look at it, that's not where your eye necessarily will go first off, but you'll take it in if you stand there and look at it long enough. So I think that's kind of the goal.
And I think it helps to hear somebody like you who is schooled in this and knows the reason why. Like, we can look at a painting as a viewer and say like, well, I know that's a successful painting and I know that that works because it's pleasing to the eye, but
Yeah.
what is it about that that makes that work? And I think hearing people break that down and all that, and you know, like you were saying, that rock, it's not placed halfway through, but if it were, then that would be less successful. And it's just helpful to, I mean, you don't want to nitpick, but there's those general guidelines of composition that help the eye move around the space. And I know even with like my mixed media work, one of the things I'm working on is to have enough room for the eye to rest. It's so easy to just be like, oh, this is a cool piece of paper and this is neat. Blah, blah, blah. But one of the things I've really focused on is, okay, well, I have to have whatever the mixed media version is of like the sky holes you were talking about, or like, what's the foreground, what's the background, even within an abstract composition too.
Exactly. Yeah, totally the same theory applies to abstract, to mixed media, to oil paints, to watercolor, to landscape. It doesn't matter what it is. You still got to have all of these little points. You've got to have exciting spots. You've got to have calm spots. You've got to, you know, give the eye places to go. You're in control of where the viewer is going to be looking. And I think that's very important. And one of the ways that I learned that was from my mentor. I had done a 36 by 48 inch painting. It was similar to this one with the mountain view, and the glacier totally led your eye in. And then I had a stack of trees, and she took one of the sky holes and she's like, you know, I know it's not my painting and you've already signed it, but do you think I could just add half of a stroke to your painting? And she took one little dab of white and she put it there, and it just totally transformed this 48 inch painting with this like teeny weeny little dab that she put on there.
Wow.
And it transformed the entire composition.
Wow.
It was great.
Hmm.
There's, see, I'm a story girl.
I love it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I can help with all of those kind of issues in my different way of explaining things.
Yeah.
I imagine that would be also when you're first sketching out a landscape, just on the canvas or paper, and then you can come to you and say, what do you think of this composition? Is it really, or this is what I'm trying to do? And then that would help me.
One of my things that I'm constantly saying to my students is to take time with your sketch. And of course, that is the least fun part of the entire painting process, is sitting down and sketching and doing thumbnails of your different compositions. As I say, you can do little thumbnails and say, okay, in this painting, I want that tree on the right to be my focal point. And then you kind of tweak things to make that tree your focal point. In, you know, you can change it around. It doesn't have to be the mountain. It doesn't have to be the river. It can be whatever you want. You can just take time to do the sketches and figure it out ahead of time. And then once you get into the fun painting process, you can just go for it and really put the paint on, and try not to be afraid of using too much paint. That's another problem that many students have. They don't put enough paint on their paintbrush, so they want to just save it for later. And I am sure that there is no shortage of paint anywhere around. So use some paint, you know.
Really? You paint with a really loaded brush?
I do. I
Cool.
do. Yeah. So do you.
Well, but
Your
in
your brushes are way bigger than mine.
yeah, but it's in a different way.
Yeah, totally.
I want to rush to do the details, though. I love details.
I don't. Once I get to the part where, oh, this is gonna work out, then I'm like, oh, I've got stacks of paintings here that I just have to put the finishing details. The magic happens right at the end where you get.
Okay, so we'll switch.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of it, right? Like, I mean, I don't paint an abstract yet, but I feel like I could. I mean, I'm willing to learn. I'm more like, I think what Karen Gerard was saying, I'm a beginner, but I'm keen to learn.
Ah. Did you always do abstracts, Lynette?
No, no, some things are really detailed. I've done some car paintings that the cars are so detailed, and then all around it is abstract. And I wanted to do cars abstract, but it kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter because all of a sudden I was doing more an object. So yeah, but I came from more of a different background, and then abstract just sort of started. Maybe it was a response to the rebel and getting away from all the straight lines and accurate measurements and all that stuff. And it was like, no more.
Yeah. Well, some of my favorite Canadian landscape painters have abstracted their landscapes. So I really like that. So I've done a few of those as well. And I love Bourgeois and Ria Pell and Jack Shadbolt and a lot of those, Gordon Smith. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of abstract artists that I love that have started with landscape. So that's kind of.
Do you find your style has changed very much in recent years, or you like what you do and you just continue with it, and you've
Good
all
question.
be experimenting before?
Well, I started recently, like I had to empty my filing cabinet because I got a new shelf unit in my studio. So I started going through some of my really old paintings, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe how bad they were. So I think I've changed since then. I can't believe people actually bought them back then. And yeah, I think I'm assuming that most painters have got those paintings out there in the world that they wish they weren't out there.
Yes.
Sure,
I understand that feeling. Sometimes I'll go to like a friend's house that has one of the ones that I just have given them or something. I'm like, oh, I really should not have let that go out into the world.
Yeah,
But you
I
know what? They love it.
They do.
And who are we to? Yeah, I mean, we're always our own worst critic, right?
That's true.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. I gave a painting to my cousin for a wedding gift in 1995, and I keep telling, she's got it hanging above her fireplace on her mantle, and I keep telling her I'm going to break into her house and steal it, repaint it, put it back. She's like,
We
no,
just have to paint a new one to replace it. Yeah,
no, she won't let go of the old one.
she won't
Trust
let
me.
go of it.
No, no.
Aw, she loves it.
Yeah, she does. That's what matters.
You offered a house sit.
Yeah.
Bring your paints.
Bring your paints. Yeah, exactly.
So Nancy and Caprice, so when is your group starting? It's this next week, right?
Monday.
Yeah, Monday, May 15th.
Wow.
So
Still some spots left, so get in there and sign up if
Yeah.
you so choose.
And
it's
then I
such a great time to do it. And I think like there's so much inspiration with nature. I know, Diane, you're lucky to live in a warm climate. For those of us that are further north than you, we have winter and all those seasons. So things are just starting to turn green where I live, and I'm inspired. But also, I think like a small group, I'd love if we had to monopolize Caprice's time in our learning.
I can hardly wait. I really hope we get some great group happening starting Monday. It's going to be fun. And then I'm going to work with Jill too at some point, right, Jill?
That's right. Me and Karen. I think we're gonna. That'll be a little bit later on, so we can't wait to work with you either.
Yeah, great.
Well,
I wish I had more time, but over the summer is a bad time actually for me. So, you know, I mean, your group will probably go through for several months, and then you know, never know, maybe in the fall again, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you planning on a curriculum where you're going to start with something and go through and what's your plan there?
It will not be a curriculum. I'm going to just basically go through and work with each of the students. So if you want to join in at a later time, you're free to join in whenever it works for you, because I can tune into where you're at no matter what time you join. So yeah, it's not going to be a standard curriculum. It's like a mentorship where just each student will be at the place where they are. Some will be beginners and some will be more advanced and different mediums. Yeah.
Mastrius really is designed that way too, to just, you know, you can pop in and, you know, it's very organic. It's not just like, okay, if you miss the boat starting in September, then you miss the boat. It's like people
Yeah.
come and go, and it's a very organic process. And it's also great that way because you know, you get a new group member that comes in, everybody can get to know you, and it changes the group dynamic a little bit. And yeah, Mastrius is great that way as far as flexibility goes. So
Yeah, that's where I think I came into my group after they've been going for a few months. And as I say, I'm in a completely different stage of my journey, and they had covered some of the fundamentals that I really need. So I've been sort of going back and covering things again.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I can't believe
yeah.
that the hour is past, but I know Karen, like, connect with us again, reach out. I mean, are you on Instagram? Because I really recommend that you follow Caprice Fine Art.
I am on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
she covers a lot of those fundamentals even in her Monday talks. So I would recommend following her. I've learned I can't believe the
What's
hour
your
is-
Instagram?
Oh, it's Caprice Fine Art, right?
Yeah.
Please Fine Art. Okay.
But
Thank you.
And yeah, I hope you'll join a group when
Yeah.
you have the time. It'd be really, really fun to have you. Yeah, we
you guys
will
so
definitely cover the basics and more.
thanks
And
everyone
Thank you.
for joining
Thank you
us
so
tonight.
much, you guys. I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Nancy.
And thank you,
Everyone,
Caprice.
and I hope to see you all again soon.
See you again.
Thanks.
Take
Few
care.
months.
Bye.
Happy Friday tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah.